I need to put together like 500 iron bars and 300 silver, and it's like it's going to take me forever to collect that much and not spend it. Or not create other things. Oh well, and I don't have time because I'm plucking crops.
We also don't have time because we're live on the show. So welcome to the Vomitorium, everyone. As always, I'm your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. How you doing today?
Great. I just got Super Mario Brothers Wonder last night. I've only played a couple of levels, but it's weird. It's a weird game. It's really cool. It's definitely brings back the cool, 2D platformer vibes with a lot of interesting, what do you call them? Just new stuff. It feels very new and fresh, and there was a period of time around the Wii U era where all the actual called new Super Mario Brothers games were all very just boring and samey. Just all very similar.
Well, it's like, I really liked the new Super Mario Brothers when it first came out on the DS, right? Because we haven't had a 2D Mario Brothers game for a long time, and I've kind of always preferred the 2D side-scrolling Mario games, as much as I still enjoy the 3D ones. And then it was new again when we got, was it the Wii version or the Wii U? I forget. The first one that actually introduced the 4-player play, couch co-op, which might have been.
I think that was a Wii U.
Yeah, and that was cool at first. But then there was 5 or 6 versions on the Wii U after that, where it's basically just the same game, but oh look, you're Luigi now, and there's this Nabbit guy, and it doesn't fundamentally change the game. I guess a lot of the Luigi levels were harder. It was like you were replaying the game on hard mode or challenge mode, but it still wasn't a challenging game. It was just kind of boring doing the same thing over again.
Yeah, and then they had New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the DS. That was just all about collecting coins, and it was like that's not an interesting enough mechanic.
Yeah.
And then the 3D Land, is that it?
Well, 3D Land and 3D World are fundamentally different
3D
games, right? So 3D Land was the one on the 3DS. That was the first one, and 3D World was the Wii U sequel to 3D Land.
Right. And they were interesting. I liked 3D Land. But, and then 3D World was just, is that where they brought in the cat suit?
Yes, that is where the cat suit comes from. That one, they kind of brought back the whole Super Mario Brothers 2 thing where you could play as Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Peach. And they actually function slightly differently. So Peach had her hover. At the end of the game, you could unlock Rosalina and play through the levels again. And she also kind of had a hover thing, but it wasn't like Peach's. Hers was more like a twirl. So she had a double jump where she could jump and then she could twirl in a direction.
Yeah. Well, I found that they seem to be focusing on the players' abilities and the new suits and new, things that you could do, but the world itself always seemed to be pretty, I don't know, I don't want to say boring. The 3D World was kind of cool that, it was in 3D and there were some interesting puzzles and things like that. But
in this one, it was kind of dynamic because it felt a little more like a 2D Mario game because of the angle you were playing at, but it had all the mechanics you were used to from the 3D Mario, so you could do your wall jumpings in different directions and stuff like that.
Yeah. This one focuses, you do get a couple of new abilities. The elephant one comes in right at the beginning, which is okay. But again, it's these abilities, it's they're interesting for a couple of stages, but then it's just okay, well, it's not particularly interesting. What's cool about this one is the world itself is different. It's very, very, feels new. The animations are all brand new and different from anything else. And then, they have these wonder seeds that all have a different effect. So the world just becomes bizarre and weird for a little while.
Yeah, I have a hypothesis as to why Wonder was made, right? because it does seem like kids' first Mario game to a degree, and not in a bad way, right? And focusing on like the effects in the world and stuff. It's almost like putting a kid in front of a cartoon, right? You're trying to wow them, you're trying to occupy their time, and Mario's always been a game that's been I guess applicable to each new generation. Like they've never really had a problem bringing new audience members into the Mario game as they get old enough to play them. But especially since the Mario movie had just come out at the beginning of the year, and obviously they would have been planning around that for a long time, knowing that it was in production. I think since they knew there'd be a lot of people introduced to Mario from the movie, that they wanted to scoop up the audience a little bit younger than normal. Because I would usually say your average Mario game is probably at the low end 7 or 8 and up, like right around that area. This game, from what I've seen, looks like they could shave a couple years or so off. Like you might be able to do like a 5 and up from this game compared to the normal Mario games.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
if I
played
agree
them
with that.
really young. I was probably playing Mario games when I was 4, but looking like other people I knew, 7 and up seemed to be more like the classic Mario game age.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably the same. I've had a 5-year-old and he had a lot of trouble. he couldn't really play Mario. I don't think he would have been able to do much in this game at the age of 5. It's not.
Well, what if he was
you're
playing
right.
the Yoshi though, right? So there are options that make the game inherently easier for people.
Sure, I guess so.
And that's one of the things like I'm thinking about. I'm not like, yes, you could have like a normal Mario experience if you actually choose to play as like Mario or Luigi or Peach and Daisy. But then they also have like the Yoshis that can come in, and they're more durable, and you can also ride on a Yoshi and stuff like that. That just makes the game inherently easier. Obviously, they've been planning around the family for a long time. Ever since they started making the 2D Mario's 4-player games, you could tell that they were more family focused than the individual experience.
Yeah. Well, it is. I think they've always had this focus where it's like, we want to make it, super easy to get into for kids of all ages, whether it's 7 and up or 5 or whatever. But then as you go along, it gets more challenging. And,
of course.
And like I was talking about sort of before we started, there's final challenge stages at the end that give you cool little rewards that I don't know if any child under 10 could probably complete. Some of them look really, really difficult. So I mean, it's nice that they sort of said, okay, this is going to really be all ages. A kid could pick it up and do it, and maybe probably even finish it at the basic level, but definitely wouldn't be able to 100% it or get all the challenges done.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, the first time I beat Super Mario Brothers 3 was when I was 5. And even though Super Mario World was already out, and arguably an easier game, I think Super Mario World is an easier game than 3. I didn't beat it for another 5 years after I beat 3. And the problem with it was the controller different. So my hands weren't really big enough to fully utilize the Super Nintendo controller until I was closer to 10 years old. But the smaller, more limited NES controller that only had like 2 buttons you ever had to worry about, I could manage with my smaller, like 5-year-old hands.
Yeah.
That's why I thought the Wiimote was great. The Wiimote was like the perfect size controller for like anyone. Joy-Cons, if you turn them sideways to use as like a single player controller, like where you have like 2 people sharing the same set of Joy-Cons, is a great size for like small like children to play games on.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But I like it. It really feels just new and different. Just it's obviously, if you're like a serious gamer, like it's really whimsical. You gotta just accept that it's gonna be just fun.
Because like Mario's always been the lower end platformer. It's supposed to be your entry level stuff. Let kids enjoy it, especially the new generation. Adults will still be able to enjoy it just fine. It's
Yeah.
not Donkey Kong,
Oh,
right? Like, if we wanted a hard platformer, we would have went to Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just laughed when there's like, I think it was the second stage. You get the Wonder Seed, and like all of a sudden, all the piranha plants launch into this song.
Yeah.
I think did you see when I retweeted somebody else who recorded it on Twitter? I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't.
But oh my god, it's hilarious. It's just like it's just like one of those things that just makes you smile, and this is like, oh my god, this game is amazing. It's just really funny and hilarious. So. Yeah, I like it so far. I'm only on World 1 so far. I just, I basically played a couple stages and fell asleep. But
aren't you glad that you can take your time in Mario games? Like, used to not be able to. Super Mario World was that first one. Before that, you was like,
yeah,
I turned the game off. I have to start over now.
Yeah, you can save at any time after any stage, which is really nice. So.
I think I'll take a moment. Let's say
like
hi
that.
to people who've dropped in the chat. We've got Nuramanka Espa, who sadly has just broken or had a giant glass dish broke on the off screen, so not chatting much. Timothy Olsen and Mike Walters, thank you guys for showing up.
Hey guys. But yeah, and I haven't played any of the other characters besides Mario. What's funny is I selected random. You can select random, and it's supposed to select one for you. Of course, it picked Mario.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, well.
Not that it
was
makes
that really
difference,
random?
because none of the character stats are all the same. It's just a skin of who you like to play.
Oh, they don't play any different?
No,
other
we
than the
covered this
Yoshis?
before the game came out like a couple months ago. I'm not surprised you don't remember. But they did specifically say that they weren't doing the different stat things. The only characters that are fundamentally different are the different colored Yoshis, because they're meant to kind of make the game easier. I originally was going to say, well, I mean, even though it's easier to play as the Yoshi, if you were like a father playing with your kid, you would actually want them to play the normal character so you could play the Yoshi and they can ride on you. But then immediately they also said, well, Yoshis can ride Yoshis, so you could both play Yoshis if you want.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll try out the other characters. Like you said, I guess it'll be the same, but they'll look different.
That's why like
and
random's
Daisy looks
not
great.
a problem,
Yeah. What's funny is in the beginning, they're like almost every Mario game, they're like having a party or something.
Yeah.
And like Mario and Luigi are together, and Peach is over there next to them, and Daisy's way over on the other side, like having a conversation with a Toad. And I'm like, oh, Daisy, like she didn't feel like part of the group. It's kind of funny.
I don't know, because like knowing Daisy's personality, she's like a real go-getter people person type thing. Even if there was a party, she would probably be the one constantly moving around mingling with other people, especially being from another kingdom. She'd be like, I talk to these guys all the time, let's talk to the locals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it takes place in the Flower Kingdom, so they're all visiting. That's not where Daisy's from, though, right?
Oh, I know. She's from Sarasa Land. That's right. Which is the Calico Kingdom would be the way to translate that. Yeah.
So it's funny.
They're all toads everywhere. The whole planet, even though it's a Mushroom Kingdom, the whole planet is just populated with toads. Unless you go off to like islands, then there's like the Paintas and stuff like that. And it's like,
but yeah, they're if you've seen the previews and stuff, like there's all these flowers that talk to you and stuff like that. They don't really tell you anything interesting. They're just weird window dressing in the background.
Daisy's residence really should be, obviously not here, there's a Flower Kingdom, but Daisy's residence really should be like small little calico cat things that are like the same size and proportion as toads. Like maybe they just have like a big cat head.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, we've never gone back to Sarasa Land. That would be
ever.
a cool game.
Just that one time. That's the only time we ever went there.
Yeah, maybe after Daisy left, it just, imploded, got destroyed.
Maybe you could argue that possibly Daisy's circuit in Mario Kart takes place there. I don't know. I haven't bothered to check to see if the fields look like their calico color patches.
Yeah.
But That's like the only argument. It's like maybe you end up going there in Mario Kart, but never in a main game again.
Yeah. Hey, Fitzjoseph.
Yeah, how you doing?
So that's of course, as always, 50% of the stories are like guides and stuff. Like, what? Who needs a guide to Super Mario Brothers? Like, stop it. Just stop.
Oh, yeah, that was one of the things I liked about the new Super Mario Brothers U and Super Mario 3D World. One of the cool things about Super Mario 3D World is there was a story to it, but there was no dialogue whatsoever. It was all just like sound effects and pantomiming and stuff. So like you saw an event happen. Bowser's like roaring, Mario Brothers are putting up their dukes and takes off and stuff, and you're just chasing after Bowser. They have to fix like this glass pipe, and it's like the one time in a Mario game that the Mario Brothers actually do some type of plumbing. And like it was fun. it was funny. A kid could understand it. They don't really have to read. They didn't really need like full voice acting. That was just a good way to do a story in a Mario game, especially a 2D one.
Yeah. Well, listen. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's some dialogue at the beginning where they explain that. I mean, you see it happen, but then they're like, oh, they're like, oh no, the thing that just happened. They're just like, oh no, Bowser just stole a wonder flower or whatever and is transforming the kingdom. And I'm like, yeah, that you just showed that. That I got it. But no, I mean the guides on like Game Informer and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Is that what? Yeah, no, I was saying like in the.
I thought you were saying there were guides in game.
No. No, there's not that. I'm saying like on when I go looking for news, it's like guide to this aspect of this, of Super Mario Wonder.
I didn't see too much of those, but that's also because like Spider-Man 2 is out, and I saw way more stuff for Spider-Man 2 than Mario Wonder.
Yeah. Wonder Flower Coins and Wonder Seeds Guide.
Yeah.
You're right. Spider-Man 2 came out too, so I do see that.
I remember in Mario 3, right? So the original Mario Brothers, all the story, what little story there was to read was in the manual. And Mario 3 started that way too. Like there's the pre-story in the manual before you start the game. But that one actually had quite a bit of story to it because after every level, you got a gift because Peach sent you a letter, and there's like little bits of the lore in Peach's letter as you're going through the game. And I always question like, wait, this is postage. Why the fuck is Bowser letting his kidnapped victim send postage out?
I don't know. It's like a prisoner. He probably has to read it before it goes out. Make sure it's,
No way.
Should not asking you to send a file and a cake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you hear that in Spider-Man 2? You apparently there's a segment where you play as this woman who spray paints walls and stuff.
No, I didn't hear that at all. That sounds really boring. Why would I want to do that in a Spider-Man game? I want to play a Spider-Man.
Yeah, I know. Like, why are you playing another character? I guess it's just for a little while, but
yeah.
I
heard, which actually that happened in Devil May Cry. Actually, not any of the main ones. There was a spin-off game called DMC Devil May Cry that was made by... Oh, I always get these two confused. I don't remember if it was Team Ninja or Ninja Theory, but it's one of those developers that have Ninja in their name. And... yeah, so you have to play as the witch. There's a witch in the story, and she uses the spray paint or whatever, and there's like a very brief section where you have to actually tag her witch circle or whatever, and then you're back to Dante. And like that was okay because it's a spin-off game. But like Spider-Man, why would I want to play as some graffiti delinquent in a Spider-Man game? Like what?
don't know.
Yeah. I
diversity,
really don't know. I guess.
Because diversity, maybe?
I heard that game is unfortunately buggy as heck. Right? Not too many visual bugs, but a lot of like boundary bugs and stuff. I kept hearing people were getting soft locked, which, means you have to reset and go back to whatever the last save point or anything. They're getting soft locked in encounters be like, there's this one at the carnival where the carnival itself has like very fixed boundaries to it, and they'd accidentally keep slinging the one of the people they have to defeat out of the boundary, like over where the roller coaster is. And every time you try to go to the roller coaster, it just like out of bounds brings you back into the carnival area, and you can't get through the mission. And that has happened to people in several other places throughout the game, where they just end up getting soft locked because somebody gets slung out of bounds due to Spider-Man's kind of like ricochet web slingshot powers, you know. And it's just like, I'm not surprised.
I feel like they didn't have those kinds of bugs in the first one.
I think they did, like they popped up in the DLCs and stuff, because like the core game was like really well made, and then the DLCs and the Miles Morales, which is kind of a standalone expansion, you could get it as part of the game or by itself. Those two were like really rushed, right? All the normal expansions and the Miles Morales. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some rushed parts of this game because they were trying to get it out by a certain deadline.
Seems to me when they concentrate on, forced diversity, they lose focus on quality. I don't know.
Typically.
Is that a pattern? I kind of notice that happening occasionally.
Or feature bloat too tends to do it, which sometimes there's some overlap here where you have to add features for your first forced diversity. But like adding segments where you play as a graffiti, that's a feature bloat. Like, why does that need to be in the game?
Yeah, instead of concentrating on that, concentrate on fixing the bugs in the main game.
Yeah.
Oh well. Well, I laugh. I didn't play the first one. I don't plan on playing the second one.
Same.
Again, it's like it looks cool and all, but it's kind of like these AAA games that are just not very interesting to me. Okay, you're a character, you go and you fight bad guys and you win. Yeah. Maybe the story's interesting, but
I actually heard the story for the base Spider-Man game was actually pretty good, especially because like Doc Ock was one of like the main. You worked with him at first, right? Like he was a good guy, like he's supposed to be, and then he became a bad guy afterwards. So I was like, okay. Oh my god, he brought it up. He fucking brought it up. Oh my god. He asked me the same question. I actually refused to answer this part.
I saw that. It's like,
yeah, Fizchozo says, has any video game had the player kill a child, and how did the world react? God.
You know what's funny? I saw a tweet about that.
There's plenty of games where children die.
There was a Venom game apparently. Yeah. I think it was Matthew Marsden who tweeted this. Or some celebrity, basically saying
that's
they
right.
couldn't
Mr.
do
Negative
this
was the main villain for most of the game.
Yeah. There was some Venom game where like there was a mission or something where the main objective was to kill this child.
Yeah.
And you do, but it's like, that what the tweet was like, they couldn't do this in a game today. Like you seem to have more freedom to be edgy in the past. So I'm going to say in today's environment, just don't do it, because until we get over this, I don't know.
I think it also depends on like what do you consider a child and how cartoony is it, right? If you're trying to be really edgy about it, don't. But like baby Bowser is literally a baby.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't kill him, obviously he grows up to be Bowser, but like you basically kill him.
I mean, if he got thrown in lava, I think people,
they assume it would be dead.
It would be funny, it's not, because it's cartoony.
How many times has Bowser been thrown in lava? There's one time where he actually fakes his own death in the original New Super Mario Brothers. In the very first level, you drop him into lava, and then like the skeleton of dry Bowser pops out, but it's not actually Bowser. Like you fight that as a boss later, and you find out that it was just a fake out the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well.
Yeah.
We know what you're thinking of, Fizchozo.
Yeah.
But
I would just say don't.
What were we talking about?
How about just don't? Yeah.
Yeah. So Spider-Man. Yeah, I haven't seen too much in the way of actual reviews.
Mechanically, the first one looked very interesting, right? Because of the web slinging, actually looked more fluid than it did in any Spider-Man game. Like, it is the first one where you actually feel like you're Spider-Man. Although the Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation, I think 2, was clearly the best one, because all of those Spider-Man games had like Bruce Campbell as the tutorial narrator, and Spider-Man 2 is just such a great game.
Yeah. Well, and they intentionally made MJ ugly.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I saw,
very dopey. And we both, I think, saw her model actor for the mocapping and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
She's
you look
hot.
at the actor, she's beautiful.
Absolutely
it's like,
stunning.
Just make her look like the actress. I mean, what would have been like, why did they alter that?
Like, there's certain things I understand. Age her up a bit, sure, but that doesn't have to make her look dopey, right? Because she is supposed to be older. Yeah, you could, I don't know.
But
Don't
being
put
older
bags
doesn't make
under
you look
somebody's
ugly.
eyes. No, they don't. That's the problem, right? And if you want somebody who looks more average, or even just older, and you want to match, cast a model that actually looks like what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Stop ruining these models' images by like taking them and then making the characters based off of them look ugly. That's almost insulting. Or actually,
Yeah.
not almost. It is insulting.
Well, and she looked fine in the first one.
Yeah.
Like, why did they even change it? I don't even get it. I mean, I do. I sort of do. I mean,
because women aren't allowed to be pretty.
Yeah. I mean, do they have like female developers or testers or something who would be jealous of the
Probably.
of the cartoon MJ? I don't get it.
They got women on their board that would probably be mad at it. You know, like that's just how it is.
Because they're basically a cartoon character, is more attractive than them.
Yeah.
Ugh.
MJ, who is by far supposed to be one of the hottest women in the Marvel universe, like
Yeah.
by design. That's what she's supposed to be. She was a supermodel.
She's literally a supermodel.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah. Like, that's her job. And there's like that, like the fact that she had, I haven't read Spider-Man in a long time, but like she had an actual job and she was like supporting Peter. Like she made a hell of a lot more money than him. She was freaking rich, right? They lived in a penthouse apartment in Manhattan. I mean, she was a rich supermodel.
After things got better, right? Because for a while at first they were struggling. She was still making more than him, but there's like even this famous panel where he has to. He had a long night of Spider-Man and he just wants to sleep it in, and she's like, nope, you gotta get going. We've got bills to pay, and she tries to wake him up by getting him off, but clearly like that's a dumb idea. If you've ever had sex, that's immediately afterwards you just want to go to sleep.
That's not gonna work.
Yeah, but because her modeling career
anyway.
wasn't that successful at first, like it blew up later,
Right?
And she technically was an actor too, but not in the way that the movies try to put it. She was doing like TV commercials and the stuff that like models do,
Yeah. I don't know if it was late 90s. It seemed like it must have been like late 90s, because I think that was like the last time I really read Spider-Man comics.
Yeah.
At some point around that time, she was successful, and they
massive
had what probably was like $1 million, penthouse, in New York. And it's like, what was wrong with that? Like seemed to be like female empowerment, and
and then
everyone
that was
liked it.
ruined by like the late 90s or early aughts, because eventually they moved into Stark Tower and basically Tony was covering their bills. That was actually like one of the whole things about like Civil War, right? Is like he felt comfortable going public when Tony asked him, because at that point he and his family were already like Aunt May had been moved into Stark Tower with them. They had like a whole floor of it was just their house. Right? And then that still backfired on him anyway, but
yeah, I guess I never read any of the stuff about Spider-Man like being in the Avengers, like an active part of the Avengers. He always seemed like a solo.
Really was. He and Tony were friends, and he kind of did to some degree become like Tony's protege, because Tony was kind of like the father figure he hadn't had for like since Ben died, but he was always kind of just like on the side, like on the outskirts of the Avengers. He would help them, but he wasn't really like an Avenger.
Yeah. I don't know.
You know.
Yeah, they totally screwed the pooch. I mean, it seemed so. It was so good in the late '90s, and then they just like went off in bizarre directions, and then one more day pretty much just destroyed the whole thing.
Yeah,
it just ruined it. So, oh well. But anyway, yeah, I was just saying, like, this is one of those AAA games that looks really good, and I heard really great reviews of the original, you know, that first Spider-Man. But it's just it's this whole genre just is not interesting to me.
Yeah. You know what? I am gonna play a game that plays like it, but I'm gonna play a game that looks way more interesting to me. Have you heard of Project Mugen?
No.
Okay, so you know how I like my gacha games, right? Coming out next year, there's a gacha game called Project Mugen, where they actually went through the trouble of creating a city generator, right? Like something that will seed map a dense city like Tokyo based off of the parameters that they give it. I believe in Unreal Engine. So like they took Unreal Engine and they built a city generator inside of it. And it's going to have your anime aesthetic and your anime waifus. And with like grappling hooks and shit like that, you're going to be able to sling through the city and do all of your gacha game Genshin style adventure stuff at like high pace Spider-Man style. And from what I've seen of it so far, it actually looks really fun.
Yeah, I went to the website. Very first thing you see is a bunny girl. So
yeah.
I can see the appeal. And the second thing you see is a cat girl. So oh, okay.
Yeah, and like while they'll all have like the grappling hook and be able to sling around, they have like different mechanics and even movement mechanics. One of the girls is like a cat girl delivery girl, which is straight up my alley anyway. And she can basically like from any height ground pound down to the ground and just like pull out her scooter and take off. So she's actually got like a delivery scooter type thing, and like it looks like a fun game. The mobs look interesting to fight too, because it looks like that somewhat Genshin Hoyoverse style of combat. It's not Hoyo, it's obviously people that are trying to do the same thing because it's popular, but putting their own spin on it.
Company called Naked Rain.
Yes. But it's got like that level of combat where there's like world bosses, heavy mobs and stuff, and you have to figure out like how you fight against different types of mobs. So there'll be interesting combat, interesting travel and traverse. The only thing that we got to know is if the game's going to be good, is if the core story is going to be good, because that is kind of like one of the driving points of these type of stories, and how tedious is the side quest going to be? Because the side quests actually don't even feel that tedious at all. If they actually feel fun and rewarding, then boom, I'm sold on the game.
Yeah, it looks like Genshin Impact in a modern city.
Yeah,
thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And the company's in Singapore, so at least it's not China.
Yeah.
That's cool. Project Mugen.
Yeah, so I'd rather play that over Spider-Man 2 any day.
Yeah, fighting game, adventure, role-playing.
And anime waifus. How can you say no to anime waifus?
Is it a gacha game, I assume?
It is a gacha game.
Free?
So it's going to be free to play, and then you pay to the level of enjoyment that you want.
Yeah. Hey, I actually started playing Honkai Star Rail. I got a new phone, and I was like, okay, what can I?
I thought you were going to play it on the PlayStation 5 since it's already out on it.
I should probably. Well, can you use the same?
It's the same account.
Can you link?
Yes. You just log in with the account. It's the same save data, everything. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I wanted to see what my new phone could do as far as, because it's supposed to have all, latest and greatest graphics and everything. So I was like, let me play Honkai Star Rail and see how it looks. And it's great, on a little screen like this. I'll have to log in on the PlayStation and continue the story.
It's a good story too. Yeah. Which is, you need that in an RPG. That's like one of the few genres where like a good story is actually like paramount. Like it's a big part of the draw of that genre. You go play a turn-based RPG, you want interesting mechanics. Doesn't have to be like the greatest thing because again, it's turn-based, and it's got to be a good story. Those are the two big draws there, and character-driven story specifically because the characters are what you remember from RPGs.
Yeah. Now, I imagine it gets more complex, like the gameplay gets deeper, but at the beginning, it does feel a little bit like RPG light. Like it's just, you know, here, press this button, and you press the button, and the battle's done. You're like, oh, you beat them all. It's like,
yeah.
I hope it gets more interesting than that later.
It does. Like the general combat never becomes more complicated, but it can become more complex, especially to the level that you put into it. A lot of it is somewhat decided by your loadout, so like what you go into combat with ahead of time, and there's also some RNG. But because of RNG, you still have to think about what you're doing, because a lot of the actual combat is skill point manipulation and turn order manipulation, right? So there's like a ton of different light cones that do different things. So depending on what like the weapon you have equipped on a character will change how you do things in combat. Different characters have different like everyone's got 3 moves, right? You've got your basic attack, you've got your skill, and an ultimate that you charge up, right? And depending on who's in your team, those things might play off of different people in different ways. And you would choose whether you use something depending on like where they are in the turn order, and that's why you want to manipulate the turn order. And then what you decide to do will also depend on like what enemies you're fighting, because some of the enemies actually make combat kind of complex, because like, oh, I can't attack this guy directly during this turn, or else he's going to change aggro from his a tank to me and just to my DPS and just one-shot my squishier DPS. So it does get kind of complex.
Okay. But it is a little bit, it's not as, there's not as much you can do in combat as you can in like say Dragon Quest 11 or something.
Yeah,
like
the
that.
depth isn't character utility. The depth is more like a game of chess, where it's like, how do I need to figure out to maneuver this limited situation? You know, the frame that we're stuck in.
Yeah. Well, I'll get into it a bit more. See if I like it. It's just a tool to extract your money. You haven't spent any money on it, have you?
I have, actually.
Oh, you have?
Money on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't really spend money directly towards pulls. Because I like the game, and I like supporting things that I actually like. I've bought the Battle Pass 3 times. So, yeah, cool. I've spent money. I bought the Battle Pass once in Genshin, but that was when Genshin was very new, and honestly, at this point, I like Genshin, but not enough that I'd buy the Battle Pass again.
Yeah, I do that too. Like if I get really into like a free to play mobile game or something like that. Like I even spent a little bit of money on Animal Crossing Pocket Camp because I was playing it all the time. Didn't need to spend money, but it was more, and of course they don't need my money, but I felt like I should support it a little bit, buy a few of the leaf bucks or whatever they were called, and gives you a couple extra pulls. Only in that case, it's fortune cookies that you open up that give you things. Yeah,
I do like it's almost on principle. I believe I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and if I do really enjoy a game, I will throw some money at it. I did that with I did some with Pocket Camp. I did that with War of the Visions. Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. I would occasionally buy like the refill. Actually, I it wasn't just the Battle Pass. I bought the Express Pass in Star Rail 2 once, which gives you a trickle of the in-game currency over 30 days. You get one like each day, which is pretty cheap. You spend like $5 on that for 30 days, and it's like it's a good value. And I'll buy stuff like that, stuff that doesn't really break it, because I think this game is more entertaining if you are somewhere between free to play to low spender. I think whales, while they are supporting the game, and I love to see them blow their money on this game because it means the game will last longer. It actually ruins the game because it takes what challenges there away. Like if you E6 with the Eidolons, every time you get a copy of the character after the first one, you get an Eidolon of it. and that gives them like a bonus or whatever. If you E6 characters, you can like auto most of the content in the game without thinking about it, even the harder stuff. And it's like, what's the fun of that? You know, like
Yeah, and I'm not going to spend $100 or sure. You know, I know they spend way more than that sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
I'm not going to spend more than, you know, 15, 30 bucks maybe over the lifetime of playing a game. Maybe 50 if it's really good and gives me years of entertainment. You know.
Yeah, I might spend more than that depending on how long I'm playing the game. But my guideline is usually I want to treat it like I bought a full price game, so I don't want to spend more than like $60 a year, right? Like if over the course of a whole year I spent $60, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty satisfied with that expenditure.
Yeah. Plus, it it gives you a little bonuses and stuff in the game that make it a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah, because low spending, all it does is it saves you some grinding. That's pretty much the difference, right? Instead of waiting for your energy to refill and then grinding more, it's like, okay, I get this reward right now, but I'm still going to have to do some grinding, and I'm still going to have to like try when I play the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of the annoyance of some free-to-play games is that like you almost can't even play the game anymore, like for a few hours, and it's like, okay, I don't mind the breaks, but like, I want to play right now, but if I log in, there's nothing for me to do because I'm still waiting on something.
Yeah, like I've done all the story and I've done all the side quests, so it's like everything that I want to do requires the in-game stamina. This game is cooler though because it does give you shit that like replayable shit if you just want to have fun that you can do. Because the world enemies only spawn once a day, so you could even have cleared all of the world enemies that day and have nothing to do. But you can run the simulated universe as often as you want. Obviously you can't get any of the relics if you don't have the stamina to blow on the little machines that drop the relics after you beat like an elite enemy or boss, but you can still run through the whole roguelike world if you want. It'll even for 35 runs still give you the same drops that the overworld enemies would have given you. There's like the Swarm Disaster upgrade that you can run basically endlessly. There's every 2 weeks there's a new Memory of Chaos in the Forgotten Hall, which is like the challenge thing to do for those 2 weeks. And there's 10 floors of that, and it's like if you still haven't gotten 3-star on all 10 floors, then you still have something to do in the game, right? Because you've got to clear that. You don't have to, it's an optional thing, but like it's something to do. And there's another... Oh, and some of the other things, like this Pokemon event, there are certain, I think, replayable parts to it. Like you could go and re-challenge.
There's a Pokemon event?
Yeah. So there's an event that turned the game into Pokemon that's going on right now if you're caught up in the story. And it's called Ethereum Wars. I actually can't believe we didn't talk about this. This dropped like over a week ago. Would have been news. And basically, it's less like Pokemon, though all of the memes, all the references and Easter eggs are directed towards Pokemon, but it feels more like a Shin Megami Tensei or Monster Hunter, or not Monster, Dragon Quest Monsters type game, where you actually collect the enemies you've been fighting, Pokemon style or whatever, and you can have, instead of your normal party of gacha characters, you have your, oh my god, what the hell is wrong with my computer? I'm getting encoding problems every so often.
Robot it out for a second.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'll have to figure that out. Yeah, no, I heard the robot on my end, and it also dropped to like 0 kilobits per second for like a hot second before bouncing back. I don't know what's going on. I'll have to do some troubleshooting later. But yeah, you collect like these enemies that you've been fighting, and they're like hologram clones of them. And you have a party of just those, and you can, like, in the same way that you do your gacha characters, you can organize, like, oh, this character will work well with this character, and I've got, like, this team that has to fight this other team, and you go, and there are trainer battles that you can do, but there's also, like, these gyms that you go through, the victory zones, that have the trainers, it's got the enemies you collect, and there's, like, a gym leader at the end, and there's puzzles that you do, and then at the very end, there's like this Elite Four type setup that you do where you have to fight 4 of the NPCs that you know in the game. And they have actually like really cool intro animations and too. It feels very Pokemon when you're fighting them. And then there's like this big champion, this elite player that you fight, and that one is totally it's a Pokemon reference too, because I'm not going to spoil who it is for people who haven't done the event. It's the best person they could have picked in the game that you've met for that position. But you go up a snowy mountain and you approach this person you already know. All they do is turn around at you. They don't say a word, and you start the battle, which is like Pokemon Gold and Silver after you've finally done everything. And you go up Mount Silver, and Red from the first game is just sitting there waiting for you. And when you go up to challenge him, he doesn't say a word. It's like ... and then it goes straight into the battle, just like stoic. This is the fight you've been playing the whole game for. And I'm like, that's such a good reference. I thought this was the best event they've done. And I've said that about almost every event they do, because they just keep outdoing themselves with the events. And I'm like, you can't do this forever. Yeah. There's going to have to be an event that's not better than the last one eventually. They just haven't run into it yet.
Interesting.
So yeah, if you like turn-based RPGs and you like anime waifus and husbandos, they actually have husbandos in this game too. You out there, audience, you should play Honkai Star Rail. It's only probably one of the most profitable games out right now, just period.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I just, I knew I wanted to try it, but just never got around to it. And when I finally did, I was like, this is pretty fun.
Well,
and it's definitely
every character.
I was just gonna say it's and I have to say, like, if you don't like most turn-based RPGs, that aspect of it, I think they made it more interesting, and not quite as complex, which could be it's a bit of a downside for me, because I like the complexity of Final Fantasy VI or Dragon Quest XI, but yeah, it's simplified, and yet it sounds like it gets deeper later on, or more complex later on. So,
well, I think like that's one of the bigger problems too, is like, how much complexity do you actually want from a turn-based RPG, right? I think Octopath Traveler has actually hit like the perfect amount of complexity, because instead of having like this long spell list where like all the earlier versions of the spells just keep getting outclassed by the later version, why would you, once you have enough MP to juggle, why would you ever use Fire 1 over Fire 3? Right? Like you wouldn't. The original Final Fantasy, it's fine because you only have so many spell slots, so it actually makes you think about like what you're gonna do, very D&D style. But like in later ones, once MP replaces that, why would you ever?
Yeah. You wigging out again?
Yeah, I heard it for like a second.
That's really strange.
Yeah, it is. But yeah.
Well,
and Octopath, I think, did it better because every job has a set number of spells that come with it that you have to unlock by leveling the job up. Kind of similar to Final Fantasy V, but instead of like, Final Fantasy V, I unlocked black magic, so now I have access to any black magic I've learned. This job has access to like Fire, Lightning, Blizzard, and the AoE version of Fire, Lightning, Blizzard, and that's it. Or this job has access to Dark, or this job has access to hiring help and Wind, right? And you get to play it out, and it's like the perfect level of, it does what it needs to do, and you pick your loadout for the fight. And I think this game's trying to do the same thing, just on an even more simplified level. In fact, I would say if you want a game that plays like this but better, Octopath Traveler is that game, because it also has to do with turn order, manipulation, breaking enemies like overshield or toughness or anything like that. I would throw these in the same camp. This one just becomes more interesting because of like the sheer number of characters that you get to play with. You could say the same thing about Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent, the gacha game, but they're all preloaded into jobs. So you don't really care if you get a different version of the same job unless it's like a 5-star. In this one, even the 4 stars have value because everybody does something a little different. And Bronya's the most broken character in the game. If you happen to get Bronya off of the standard banner, you're set forever.
Okay. Good to know. I have to say, a bit of a side point.
Yeah.
Completely different topic. TheGamer.com might be the worst games news website ever. They're competing with Kotaku to be the absolute worst. I just wanted to say that. I'm looking at it now, and these stories are insanely bad. But anyway.
Yeah, Fitzjoseph says, I might try out turn-based RPGs eventually. At least they're allowed to be complex, unlike real-time RPGs. Yeah, that is like a big trade-off that you have. The more time that you get to take to use your stuff, the more complexity they can put into the game, because you've time to pick your options. In a faster-paced game, all your options have to be reflexive, so you have to limit like what the character can do. There's not terribly a lot of turn-based RPGs that will... Oh my god, why are you freaking out again? It's my computer. I don't know what my computer is doing. I need to figure out... Might be running hot. That might be an issue.
Task manager.
Yeah.
Something running in the background?
I don't think anything's running. Unless my computer's like trying to do... It might be background downloading an update without my permission. Which, let's see. No, it says I'm not even close to using full CPU or memory.
I had to recently reinstall Teams, which I had uninstalled because I wasn't using it for my job anymore. And then, someone wanted to have a meeting with me on Microsoft Teams, and I was like, ugh.
Oh, yeah. Shit. I need to uninstall a lot of stuff, though, right? Like, maybe it could be... It doesn't look like I'm low on memory, but it could be low on storage. Since certain things that you pop up, like OBS or like Photoshop or whatever, will use like virtual memory out of your storage instead. I only have like 24 gigs left of storage on my computer. I've been slowly moving more and more off of my laptop onto the external hard drive. And I don't think that hasn't been a problem, because I've been sitting on like 24, 25 gigs the last like 5 or 6 times that we've done this.
Yeah. Have you done a C drive, like the built-in cleanup tool?
No, I've used CCleaner recently though.
Just right click on your C drive and go to properties and then
I should
do the cleanup.
Sometimes I used to
you've got like
I've
had Windows Update.
Yeah.
I've had Windows Update files that are like 10 gigs.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Junk.
Yeah, I should just do it. Yeah, but what I was saying to Fizz is, like, I don't know if there's terribly a lot of turn-based RPGs that will appeal to some of the things you like out of games. I mean, Baldur's Gate gives you options if you actually want to play a character, and that is a turn-based game. It's just a map combat turn-based game. XCOM can be similar like that, but it's not a very character-focused game, because in XCOM, you expect a lot of your characters to die, so you're always recruiting new characters. A lot of more traditional ones, I just don't know if they're up your alley, but you always give them a try.
Do you see Asmongold? I think it was like last month or maybe a couple months ago, had tweeted there should be a category in Baldur's Gate 3 speedruns that's how long or how quickly can you get to have sex with a bear in the game. And then Elon Musk just this week replied to it saying bearkake.
Bearkake, yeah. It's the any % bear completion run.
That's right. Gross.
Yeah. See, well, I had some interesting stuff. We don't have a lot of time left, but I was interested in the conversation we had. So, let's see. Roblox CEO tells his remote workers that they have to work in person at least 3 days a week or they will lose their job. Good on you, Roblox CEO. Doesn't seem like it's applying to truly remote workers, because they have obviously some consulting firms and stuff like that that aren't on the premises. It's to people who basically went remote during the pandemic and never went back. The long-standing work-from-home policy is ending.
I swear, if I ever have a company again, I might just make everyone be in the office every day.
Yeah.
Only occasional exceptions. No, maybe not. I don't know, but I had a guy working for me for years. He was actually my first hire, and he was great. But goddamn, he was such a complainer, and like just constantly. And like the more he complained, like, and I think we got to the point where he was only coming to the office maybe either 3 or 2 times a week, days a week, and this was long before COVID.
Yeah.
And he would still complain about it. And I'm like, dude, you're making me want to tell you to come in every day just to spite you.
Yeah. Well, it seems part of this is because they, a while back, moved their headquarters in, to San Mateo, right? So they kept a lot of their employees who refused to relocate for the company, which, I mean, if you work at Roblox, it's making so much money. You're probably making enough money that relocation shouldn't be an issue, right? Mm-hmm. And they are basically saying, like, yeah, either relocate within the additional 3-month period that we're having, or you will be replaced. Simple as. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, how much do you like your job? That's pretty much what it comes down to. I'm sure being the video game company that makes more than any other software company in the United States for video games is probably paying you well enough that you like your job and should probably relocate.
Yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, that's right smack dab in the middle of Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. But it's not San Francisco. It's not like, you'd have to go in there and get robbed by a homeless.
Oh no! Some of the other areas in Silicon Valley are actually really nice, which is part of why San Francisco is so bad, because it's like the butthole of Silicon Valley at this point.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Peach used to work in Mountain View, which is a little bit. San Mateo is just south of.
Oh yeah, I know where Mountain View is. But for the audience
of San Francisco. And then if you keep going kind of southeast, you get to Mountain View. She lived in Sunnyvale, which was right next there. And then San Jose is, sort of it's like a little comma or backwards comma from San Francisco to San Jose.
See, Fizchoso asked, what
is a nice
makes
area.
Roblox popular? The real question is, what doesn't make it popular, right? One, it's free.
It's kind of
people.
It's like the everything.
It is.
Game,
it is
right?
The metaverse. The Roblox is actually the metaverse, right? I believe it even works on some VR systems because you can play Roblox in first person. It's just like they made a game where, yeah, you can. Right? The idea was kind of based off of Lego originally, right? Like they were making their own kind of like Lego sandbox game, but they just made their own models and everything can, there are prefabricated materials like walls and stuff that you can put together, and you can make your own servers with your own zones. You can turn them into games. You can just make them clubs, hangouts. It's Second Life for kids.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, it's Second Life meets Minecraft, and you can. It's sort of.
I think it's actually even older than Minecraft too.
Yeah, and kind of throw Scratch in there if you've ever. I don't know if you've ever used Scratch. It's like a kid's game programming engine where it makes it easy to create your own video game inside the video game.
And it's an economy. So Roblox creators can also get like a cut of the Robux that go into things used in their server. Like obviously Roblox takes their cut. But it's popular because it's an economy. So, like, if you actually really like a creator, you can support their creator, too.
Oh, you can make money? Like, as
I've heard.
Roblox creator?
Yeah. I haven't looked deep into it, but I have friends who are Zoomers, but because they grew up playing Roblox, they still play Roblox from time to time. And they've talked about supporting developers directly in Roblox. Roblox is its own little, like, universe economy and stuff. It's cool. Like even I believe if you spend Robux on like apparel and stuff too made by other creators, they get a cut of that. Right? Because the store has creator made stuff. It's a crazy game. I would call it more than a game, but yeah.
Yeah. I know I think my kids still play it. My son's almost 18, and he still plays it.
Yeah, if I had played it when it was new, I probably would still play it. But I never developed any attachment to that. And I think, I don't know, I'm not even a big stickler for graphics, but the models are a little too goofy for me to be able to get into it. And also because there's a lot of kids.
Yeah. I imagine you can, I've never really looked into it, but I imagine you can basically program your quote unquote game like without any programming knowledge, or I don't know if you can script things or not. I imagine. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of drag and drop and stuff in there. Like obviously, if you know scripting, like any type of what do they? I think they mostly I think they mostly use Java script for it, but
wait, JavaScript or Java?
I want to say JavaScript.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like Minecraft, if you want to program Minecraft, it's Java.
Yeah. I think you can do other things now. Like I think like you could use Python or whatever, but
yeah. Oh, it does look like JavaScript.
Yeah, I think it was JavaScript. Like so, if you know JavaScript, which is still one of the earlier things you can learn, right? That if you go to school for, it's like one of the first things they drop you into.
Yeah.
Then you can mess around with it. But there's a lot of just like drag and drop, a lot of prefab stuff that you can use for like events in your world and stuff. There's actually a really popular like Tornado Chasers game in it that I have friends who play, where they actually hop in cars and there are tornadoes that spawn, and it's like the movie Twister, right? And you're dropping the nodes down to try to capture data, and you get money based on chasing these things. Like there's all kinds of complicated stuff in Roblox.
You can use Lua, which is kind of like JavaScript. It's kind of a simplified version of JavaScript.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know what Lua was.
Lua,
thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, apparently, so it doesn't use JavaScript, but it uses Lua, which is very, very similar.
Okay.
You can also use Python, C++, or Java.
Okay. See, I guess looking at the Lua, I just thought it was JavaScript, but I did hear about the Python. Similar. I didn't hear about the other stuff.
Yeah. It's I don't know. Well, yeah. Lua's been around. Man, Lua's been around for 30 years. It's actually been around longer than JavaScript.
Wow. I didn't even know that. I'm learning things right now.
Yeah, it's very, very similar. I'd be willing to bet that JavaScript may have actually been based on it. Maybe.
They're like, hey, this Lua thing is too simple. Let's make it more complex.
Yeah, right. Well, JavaScript didn't used to be complex.
No, it just became it over time, but still.
Yeah, exactly. Check out Roblox if you're interested.
If you're just interested in dropping yourself into like a metaverse. Yeah, even Fizz says I will probably start playing Roblox free, so there's no harm. Yeah, like I never got the attachment. I think it came out in like 2006. So that would have been high school age for me, which I would have been on the border of, if I had friends playing it, maybe I would have jumped in, but the audience would have been just a tad bit younger, and I just never developed that attachment to the game.
Yeah. I've actually never played it once.
No, you just have kids that play it.
Exactly, yeah. I've gotten the bills for Robux. Yeah, that's for sure.
You've supported the game.
That's right, I have.
Let's see, what else do I have?
Man, my Fizchozo is not much older than my kids.
Yeah.
My son was born in 2005.
Most of the people I end up hanging out around these days are like between 2000 and 2004 babies, pretty much. See, we do have the upcoming game schedule. Or wait, what else did you have? That was probably.
I was going to say I've not really. I've been vaguely a little bit following the saga of City Skylines 2. Just because we have our friend Mallet or JP, whatever goes by, plays City Skylines 1.
Yeah.
Apparently it's very, very buggy at the moment.
Very buggy.
But it hasn't been released yet, so.
Yeah, we expect games that haven't been released yet to be buggy. It's when they get released and they're buggy that's the problem.
Yeah. But it's funny that it's a lot of anticipation for it, but people are not, I guess from preview, I imagine it's available on early access and it has a lot of problems, but
yeah,
hopefully they'll fix all that. If you're interested in a city builder.
I used to like city builders. I'm not into them as much anymore. And I think it's because they've gotten too complicated.
Yeah.
So for people who are really into it, it's better. I just want, like, also the option of some more simplified stuff. I like the Super Nintendo version of SimCity. That's one of my favorite city builder games, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like SimCity kind of hit its peak at what came after SimCity 2000? Was it called SimCity 3000 or just SimCity 3 or 4? I don't know.
4 was, I think, aside
4.
from the Super Nintendo one, SimCity 4 is probably my favorite, and that's because that was the one that had direct integration with The Sims 2.
Okay. Was that the one that first, I don't know if it was the first one, but it had like, you could make like a city dump that would basically fill up with trash gradually?
I think that one did have a city dump. I don't know if it was the first to have it, but you could like populate the town with your Sims from SimCity 2. So that was kind of like a cool integration for 4. But that was like the last one I liked. From The Sims 2. That was the last one I liked. I tried that online one that was always online that was busted as fuck, but like obviously when we first tried it, none of us knew it was going to be busted as fuck. And even then, I didn't like the core gameplay. If it did work, if like you could stay online the whole time and it functioned, it wasn't as fun as like SimCity 4.
Yeah. Are there any games similar to The Sims?
There's a lot.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on what aspect of The Sims you like, I guess. I mean, some games, you know, I don't know. It's hard to it's hard to focus on one particular thing. It's just
I don't follow too many of them though. There was one we were talking about recently though. That was going to be a Pixel one. I can't remember the name of it, but we talked about like maybe 3 or 4 episodes ago when we were talking about like new indie games coming out. And it kind of like was a mix between The Sims and Animal Crossing-ish, but it had like that almost Stardew Valley look to it. And you were going to have multiple characters in a house and everything. I can't remember the name. But it seems to be coming back. One of the reasons I never paid attention in the past is because any knockoff of The Sims sucked. It just wasn't as good as The Sims. But now that The Sims is going downhill and people are making indie games that are trying to do the same thing, the knockoffs might actually end up being better.
Yeah, good. I mean, some games like, you know, Stardew Valley and similar games give you the ability to romance and start a family. But they're obviously more focused on farming and mining and that.
And a single player aspect. So like if you like the spin-off games like the Herbs or like the console versions of Sims 2 that had like some type of subtitle to it where you played as a character and interact with people, then that would probably appeal. But if you want somebody where like you're building the house and you've got like multiple people that you don't directly control, you just influence. There's not really a lot of games that do that well yet.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's almost like a function unique to The Sims. It was something that Maxis really pioneered because you get a little bit of that in Spore as well, which was made by Maxis, because Spore goes through like every type of Sim game at the different civilizations, right? You've got like the actual survival part where you're just a cell and you're trying to grow. Then you've actually got like the single player interaction where you can either fight or be diplomatic with people. And then as you get up to like that tribal level, you are kind of controlling people, but it's more of armies. So you go into like the civilizations game, and then you go in like Civ Planet Conqueror after that, and it goes through like every single stage of simulation that you would want.
Yeah, I was never kind of crazy about the games where you don't really control anyone directly. Although
it's hard to get attached to the characters unless you're like the soap opera kind of person. And actually, I did just think of a game that is kind of like The Sims in that way. Tomodachi Life on the 3DS, right? Where you've got the apartment complex and you just fill it with a bunch of characters and they interact with each other, and you can kind of sort of control them, but they do just a lot of stuff on their own.
Yeah.
That's a fun game. I might like that more than The Sims.
I did like Oxygen Not Included for a while, in which you don't directly control, but you kind of give them directions, like I want to dig here, I want to build this or whatever, but they kind of get to it in their own time. And then they kind of interact and do things on their own. But that game got way too complicated. Like, it started out really good, and there were some awesome mods that made certain aspects of it less annoying. Yeah. And then they've just added so much complexity and simultaneously broken like half the mods that I like. And it's like, it just got annoying.
Yeah. I'm also upset that I'm never gonna get a sequel to Tomodachi Life. Right? Because we kind of got the sequel to it, and then they killed it. Because the phone game Miitomo was kind of the direct sequel to it. Like, it functioned exactly like Tomodachi Life, but for your single character that you built that was supposed to be you, and then you go and you interact with your friends, right? That's like one of the core part of Tomodachi Life, except Tomodachi Life was on an island and there was a whole bunch of different things that happened, and you filled up the whole apartment complex yourself instead of having the online interaction. And when they killed that, and like I don't think there's going to be a sequel to the game now after Miitomo. Like they probably shot themselves in the foot thinking nobody wants a sequel.
Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah, I played Miitomo a little bit when it first came out. Is that still active? I probably still have it on my phone. I just haven't logged in forever.
Yeah, they sort of made another sequel to it, kind of. And this is what makes me not have hope for a good sequel to it. What was that? The Mii RPG that came out on the Switch. You know what I'm talking about? The one where you bring in your Miis and you give them personalities and they go adventuring together, and there is some RPG aspect to it. It's like a mix between Tomodachi Life and the Street Pass RPG that used to be there.
Miitopia?
Miitopia. So Miitopia is kind of an indirect sequel.
Oh, there was a remastered version on the Switch.
It was kind of an indirect sequel, and it's not as it doesn't do the RPG aspect very well, and it doesn't do the whole little soap opera comedy drama between the characters as well as Tomodachi Life. It's like in this weird in between ground, and it's just not as good.
It looks like a ripoff of Fantasy Life.
Yeah, a little.
Interesting. It's fun. I don't like those Mii characters. They're kind of played out.
Yeah. We were hoping with the Switch, which they did widen it a little bit by giving you more color options, and they made the Mii's higher fidelity, like the hair texture and stuff looks better. But we were hoping for like Super Mii's, like something that was more customizable when they said that the Switch was still going to have Mii's. And it was just the same thing we've been used to since the Mii's first came out on the Wii. And then the same ones we got in the 3DS, and they're still the same ones on the Switch. And I do kind of like the core design to the Mii. It's just over time you're hoping, let us flesh them out more, you know? That's what we were hoping with Tomodachi Life. Or not Tomodachi, with Miitomo. there was a possibility that it was going to become your avatar for the whole My Nintendo program and all of the Nintendo stuff, which you can use your Mii, at least on the Switch Online, as your avatar. But like that was going to be like possibly the Miiverse replacement, was using like the Miitomo integration. And then they just never did anything with that.
Yeah.
Nintendo has all these good ideas, and then they just like drop them halfway through.
Mm-hmm. Well, I heard that I think there was an article about the fact that they apparently used the Mii creation tool to create all the characters in like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and they just just to give them a base look, and then I guess
it was like an algorithm that would like retake it, and it would map it to how things should look in the game. And you could see some of the famous pre-made Miis that showed up in different games in there too. Like I believe Matt from Wii Sports is in Tears of the Kingdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like why couldn't they do that with the Miis? Like, you make it and then poof, turn it into like a bit more realistic
or
Breath of the Wild style character.
Right? You still just use it as a base. Like if you did that, you can leave it as a base, and then in different games you have it to where it can read your Mii and like maybe even put it into the game, right? Because one of the cool things is like Miis could show up in Mario Kart, right? You could even see them in like the background of certain areas too, right? Like in the stands. Yeah. And you're like, well, yeah, but the Miis don't fit the Mario look. Well, why don't you just make a way where it reads the Mii and it pops it into the Mario look in the same way that they do with Tears of the Kingdom? You could do that with any game. You've got the technology, Nintendo. Integrate.
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess it wasn't that important to them.
Yeah. But they still want to keep using them, like the Miis are in Smash Brothers, right? And they're fine looking the way they do in Smash Brothers, because Smash Brothers is already this like amalgamation of all these different games that like the Miis don't look out of place just being Miis there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, the PS5 Slim has been reportedly leaked. Like the actual release date has been leaked for it, which is looking for November 10th.
Okay.
And we're thinking, even though it says a data miner did it, we're almost thinking that Sony might have put it in a place that a data miner would find it on purpose. Right? Ever since like the Xbox kind of like announced that they were doing the digital only version of the X to try to get rid of the S, that like the Slim was kind of pushed out there. It's like, hey, yeah, we're good. We're doing something too. We're doing something too. Don't forget about us.
Yeah. Well, I wish they'd lower the price or something to get people to. I wish more people would adopt it, just to make it more enticing for developers to develop for it.
Yeah, it's a weird circle, right? Like a cycle where if not enough people are buying it, then not enough people are going to want to make games for it, which means more people aren't going to want to buy it, and it just continues.
Yeah.
And that's why like the launch of a system is so important, and what games are there at launch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was perfect addition because I didn't have a PS4, and it basically gives you access to the entire PS4 library.
Yeah.
You could get anything that was on there. And then just the fact that it also gave you free stuff from PS4 and previous everything except the PS3.
Oh, yeah. And that was a big problem because like the 3DS is an anomaly. And Nintendo did what they needed to do to make it an anomaly. But most systems, whether it's console or handheld, do not recover from a lackluster launch. Whether it's because your launch was lackluster due to a pandemic that had social consequences that stopped you from being able to get the parts to make enough of them to sell to people or whatever, doesn't matter. Most systems don't recover from a lackluster launch. It's not happening to Xbox or PlayStation right now. 3DS had a lackluster launch, and Nintendo went over the top, even hurting its own dollar, knowing that it would make more back long term by doing it, by just like dropping the cost of it dramatically, and rewarding the people who supported it earlier, so it didn't. You don't want to lose people like, oh man, I spent all this money, now I'm not going to ever buy a game on this again because other people got it cheaper.
Yeah.
Like, no. We're going to take all the hits to our wallet so that we can make this thing good, because we need something that at least comes close to rivaling the DS, which is one of the best-selling systems of all time. Did the 3DS come close? No, but it did very fucking well by the end of its life. So they actually turned it around. They didn't end up doing that for the Wii U. I don't think they figured out how you could have done it for the Wii U. I think they were just kind of like riding along knowing, hey, we've got one system that's selling well enough. We could just wait until the next system, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, the 3DS had such awesome first-party support. I mean, you know, whether it was all the Mario games that came out for it, and Luigi's Mansion 3, and, you know, Metroid, and all that. Yeah,
it had good third-party support
amazing
too, right?
Yeah.
And that was
well, yeah,
thing.
that brought in the third-party support.
Well, no, it had more third-party support at the start than it had first-party, which was actually one of the problems. It had a lackluster launch. There was like no first-party games to buy at the launch of the 3DS, really, right? Like, I remember Street Fighter, I think, was the game that I chose with my deluxe package. And, like, GameStop was like, oh, yeah, you get a game with it. And, like, okay, fuck Street Fighter, whatever. This is the only decent option out of them. And people wanted to jump on it because the DS had done so well. So third parties are like, yes, we want to jump on. The 3DS is a more powerful system. Everybody owned a DS. Why wouldn't we want to do this? But then, like, nobody was buying it because it was... I don't even know if it was too pricey. I think people would have ultimately been fine with the price if it had anything to entice you to buy the system when it came out. And there was no system seller. So obviously dropping the price had to happen.
I feel like it kind of fooled me into thinking it was just sort of an enhanced DS. Yeah. And I didn't realize until much later, probably when you told me, like that the games were just completely different. There were DS games. I knew there were DS games and 3DS games, but the fact it was 100% backwards compatible made it feel like it was just like a DS Pro, Plus, DS2.
Probably
Plus,
didn't help that the DSi was in between them, which the DSi was basically what you're saying. It is a Pro DS, right?
Yeah.
And then the 3DS is built off of the DSi, so it kind of just feels like a continuation of that, but it is a completely
the operating
different
system's the same. Yeah, the shop, you know, the eShop was the same. You could still buy, download, play DS games, 3DS games. It just felt like the next one. So that might have been why it also had kind of a slow start, because people were just kind of like the Wii U. Oh, it's the same but upgraded or whatever. But then as they came out with games that were exclusive for the 3DS, I think people realized they needed to upgrade if they wanted to play all the coolest stuff.
Oh yeah. And I think I don't know. I don't know if PlayStation's going to recover from the bad launch. But this might be why they're putting out the Slim, which kind of happened with the PlayStation 3 as well, right? The PlayStation 3, the fat one, did not have a very good launch. I loved it. I actually loved the launch model of it because it was backwards compatible in a way that like later versions weren't. And it had all these like different memory card slots. Like it had the fat traditional flash memory card slot in it, right? That they used to have on old computers. But the Slim is when it really started selling, and it still wasn't spectacular by the end of it. And then it had to compete directly against the Xbox 360.
Well, I was going to say the PlayStation 3, similar to the 2, the main reason, like the actual main reason that I bought the 3 was because it was a Blu-ray player.
Yes.
So I could suddenly play Blu-ray movies. Nowadays, that's not a big deal because, I mean, you know, your freaking television all by itself can play Netflix and, you know.
Even then, though, like people who got it for Blu-ray, it really didn't start selling until the Slim model came out. Like that's what really started selling the Blu-ray player to everybody. And I don't know if the Slim's going to do that this time around, but I understand why Xbox and PlayStation are having like these midlife launches, because maybe they're both thinking if we relaunch the system, we might be able to recover by having a better second launch.
Yeah. They really should lower the price though. I think that would help a lot. I don't know if they just can't afford to do that, but
yeah, no, I don't think they can. That's the problem. and I don't think you're going to have a better launch because of that. Like I think
You don't think so?
I think they're just going to have to like write this generation to scrap, right, and then figure out what they're going to do after this.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the problem is just that there's very little difference between the PS4 and PS5 in terms of graphics and the games. I mean, how many PS5 exclusives are there? It's very few, it seems like.
Yeah, and I mean, they've got more than their competitor, right, Xbox, but right now Xbox really isn't competing with anyone, so that's a very low bar to have, right? I feel like right now, I was talking to my brother, we were laughing about this. If Sega ever wanted to jump back into the console war, now would be the best time to do it. Fuck you, work.
Yeah, kind of
Yeah.
glitching in and out here.
But yeah, if they wanted... sorry, I wasn't yelling at you, audience. I was yelling at OBS and my computer. But if Sega wanted to jump back into the console war, now would be the best time to do it. Because, yeah, are they going to be able to compete with Nintendo? No way. But is anybody at the moment? Could they outcompete Sony and Microsoft? Probably. And it's because if Sega jumped in, they wouldn't be trying to hit that graphics wall that both Sony and Microsoft are clearly racing towards, right? They're trying to hit that dead end as fast as possible. While Sega games are far more stylized and focused on like the gameplay first and foremost. And if they came out with a console, they would try to make it cheaper because they would want to think like they're competing against Nintendo. And I feel like they could actually, within a couple of years, outsell the amount of PlayStation 5s that are currently out. Now, would they? No, I don't think they have the capital to jump back into it is the big problem. But they have enough different games first party, and they could probably talk some third party people into hopping on because they still have the connections, especially something like Capcom or whatever. Now would be the time. They're not going to. This is just conjecture saying how bad the other systems are doing. But like, it would be funny. I feel like Sega could actually beat these two other companies because as far as consoles go, they clearly don't know what they're doing anymore.
Yeah.
They're trying to be
Well,
PCs.
I think,
That's all it is. They're just trying to be PCs.
I mean, I think Sega's content to just stick with software.
Oh yeah. Oh no, like I said, I don't think the only hardware they ever make is arcade cabinets. That's literally the only thing they make now. And like the peripherals for those cabinets, and they're perfectly fine. They do better in the arcades than they even do on consoles. So like, why would they even care? I was just putting that out as like a point. If they wanted to, that's just how bad the other two consoles are doing, that they could probably come in and at least beat them. As long as they don't pull a Dreamcast. Well, that's all they would have to do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what else Sony and Microsoft could do. I mean, I think they're flailing a bit, but it seems like they're trying to, at least Microsoft is trying to bring in these other companies to sort of have these third or first party exclusives, and
I would like to see them bring back some of Blizzard or even Activision, but some of Blizzard's old games. And one of the reasons for that is both of them keep bringing in new companies, but especially over on Sony, they're not bringing an actual diversity of gameplay to the company, right? Like, Spider-Man is probably the most different game out of their first-party games, and that's not really saying too much, because at least you have, like, the Spider-Man mechanics. But, like, all their other games basically play the same. Why would I want to pick that up, right? They need a bunch of different shit that you can play. At least Microsoft, you like over at Rare's games are all kind of different from each other, so there's that. But the id and Bethesda games are barely different. I mean, the id games are just better. They're faster paced because you've got something that's kind of like your boomer shooters, but you're still just playing first person action game at the end of the day for either of them. They actually need diversity. Now, Blizzard and even Activision too have a wide diversity of games underneath their roster, like of the IPs they own. Hell, we were actually just laughing the other day that two of the games that made Sony popular in the first PlayStation, Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot, because Naughty Dog sold Crash to Activision, because Activision was kind of like the publisher that helped with the originally. Microsoft now owns both of the games that made PlayStation popular because of their purchase, right? You could have Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot on Xbox now if you wanted to. That's fucking crazy. That's like super like poetically ironic when you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, all these first-person games just seem so samey, except for, Nintendo.
Yeah.
They're come out with this brand new platformer, and they've got open world games, and they've got, whatever, Luigi's Mansion and Pokemon and all these other, just a really diverse.
I mean, at least Microsoft has Forza, so they have a racing game, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, bring back it's too simulated racing. Like, we'd rather have we need something arcade too. Bring back Rock and Roll Racing from Blizzard. I loved that game. I would play Rock and Roll Racing again in a heartbeat if it was made well. Bring back The Lost Vikings, where you have a platformer that is more puzzle focused than actual platforming. They have so many good games. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Activision, what the fuck ever happened to Guitar Hero?
Really? That was kind of a flash in the pan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Lasted a while, but so why can't these companies advance AI instead of graphics? I mean,
they are. They're doing both. Again, because games have been advancing artificial intelligence of sorts long before most other companies had really been doing it. I would say enemy encounters are just way more interactive and intuitive than they used to be. They have been advancing AI, and some companies are working on doing that in the text and speech and all that as well. I don't think that's a problem. They are doing it. It's just the graphics, the cinematic and immersive feel, because they love their buzzwords, were just the highest importance for some reason, even though those two things don't really contribute to the feeling of a game that much. Like, they have a contribution. The aesthetic of a game does matter, but it doesn't matter as much as, like, how do the graphics actually affect gameplay, right? Like, is the fidelity high enough that I can tell what I'm doing? Does the aesthetic match the type of game we're playing? That's one of the reasons why I give at least Rare some slack over at Microsoft, because Rare likes to stylize their stuff, and they like to make it match the actual game that you're playing, right? Killer Instinct and Sea of Thieves don't look the same.
Yeah, I mean, Asmongold did a video recently comparing World of Warcraft to, like, Final Fantasy 14, and he was saying, like,
they have different.
And World of Warcraft, the graphics aren't as good overall, but, like, he likes the aesthetic better.
Yeah,
like,
the art style's better. The modeling is kind of better too, because animation. I would say the animations are better because the way they use the models, the characters move around, and they feel more lively than they do in Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah. But let's see. Timothy had a question about people who make entertainment ruin it, but also the people who consume it.
Oh yeah, no, it is a circle, right? Yeah. Because they wouldn't sell it if there weren't people buying it. There are a lot of consumers that are responsible for basically the downfall of our entertainment, and it is because they opened the door. There are a lot of people who like interactive media, but they want barely interactive media. They basically there's people who just want movies they could play. That's not a bulk of the gaming audience, though. If we actually look at sales, it's just a big chunk of them.
Yeah, it's a combination of listening to the wrong fans, who aren't really fans, and having people, I think, in the company who insist on steering them in bizarre ways. I mean, we talked about that earlier, where with, the look of MJ in Spider-Man 2. Who drove that? Was it the fans? Was it some faction within the company? Whose decision was that?
Well, like we always used to laugh using the term casual gamer, to refer to like Call of Duty players because they always called themselves hardcore gamers, and like, no, you got, but comparatively, a lot of you are just casual, right? Like most of you don't even spend that much time in Call of Duty. There are hardcore COD players, but like most people didn't. They were just casual. It was like the only game they play, or people who would like play 5 hours a week of Grand Theft Auto. That's casual gamer, you know, like you're not gaming that much. You only play the one game. We used to use that, but those people are actual gamers. Now I would actually repurpose the term. Casual gamers are the people who play these like Sony games that are basically walking simulations with barely any action in between, or when you say action, any gameplay in between, because you don't need action to have gameplay. And they just kind of want a movie they could play. That is a casual gamer. Every other type of gamer, you're off the hook now. We found the actual casual gamers in the world.
Yeah. I don't think it's that people don't know what they want. I think it's that game companies often don't know what people want.
Oh, yeah. The
I think
marketing
they're being
departments
told,
are
but
failing. Right. They need to be doing better market research.
Yeah. I think people are perfectly willing to tell them, but, you know, they also have these agendas that they have to kowtow to, because oftentimes because they won't get funding unless they have, you know, unless they follow the message.
Oh, yeah. So, like, FanFest with Final Fantasy XIV just happened. It's happening, like, right now. There are people there. And there's a lot of people. Like, I don't know why you'd ever actually want to go to a FanFest, especially if you have to take a plane to get there. But a lot of people who didn't want to go, including one of the most prominent content creator streamers for it, Xenosis Vex. Great guy. He's probably done more content in the game than any other content creator. He's actually probably on like the top 10 list for most achievements in the game too. He plays every type of content. I would define him as hardcore because he spends more time in the game than anybody else. He is dedicated to it, has been playing it for years. He actually handed a handwritten request, like his notes, to somebody who was going to the FanFest, and they took a picture of them personally handing his request to Yoshi P, because he's like, I'm never going, but if somebody wants to take my request to him, that would be great. And if there's anyone you should listen to in the whole game for notes on how to improve the game, it should be that guy. That's the type of people you need to listen to.
Yeah. So what was the request?
I didn't hear. We don't know. It was handwritten pieces of paper. I think maybe he put them in the video. I could probably guess what they are because I've watched enough of his videos that I know the type of things that he's looking for in the game. Part of it is the type of content that needs to come out. Part of it's also like how to make jobs feel better to play, because like level 80 and 90, they're just not fun. They're on very tight rotations because everything's built around this 2-minute window, which makes building encounters easier, but also because it makes building the encounters easier, the encounters are also less fun to play. And he doesn't have a problem with the 2-minute window, but he's like, if you're going to stick with the 2-minute window, this is what you need to change about the jobs to make them more interesting to play, right? He's got a lot of very well thought out notes about the system, but it's also about like the different types of content that can be in the game. People want what they call mid-core content. I hate the term mid-core. Not that I even think the type of player doesn't exist. It does. It just doesn't fit the naming convention, right? Because it's off-core, hardcore, mid-core doesn't fit in there, right? That's your core player base, actually. That's the bulk of your player base is going to be those people. You should either call it core or normal people. Somewhere in there. I don't know. But more content for them. Like they used to have these open zones like Eureka or Baja for the relics where you would go into this zone with a whole bunch of other people. And it was almost like Final Fantasy XI. You're grinding against monsters. You're forming trains with people, doing open zone raids, stuff like that. That's what they need, and they didn't do that again in Endwalker. So, you know, pretty good requests from somebody who knows a lot about the game. Let's see. Is my previous statement not true? Everything Sony creates is The Last of Us. I'm not going to say it is The Last of Us, but it's all catered around The Last of Us, right? Like, there's definitely differences. I wouldn't say God of War is The Last of Us, but it's also not God of War. It's like something in between God of War and The Last of Us. It's all catering around that audience, for sure. So I'm going to give you a mostly true if we're going by like the Snopes rating system.
Mostly true.
Yeah, it's mostly true. Mostly accurate. But yeah, so I guess the last thing I'll talk about, since we're a little over time, is that we did get news about Final Fantasy XIV's new expansion that's coming soon, Dawntrail. They announced one of the new jobs, which I was very disappointed to see. There are a lot of people who are hype about it, but like I'm gonna explain why it's gonna be fucking disappointing in a second. They showed off one of the new areas because it's gonna be like a open sea adventure where you're going to the new land. Right? We're Christopher Columbus, boys. Let's go. And they also talked about the Alliance raid and the overdue crossover with Final Fantasy 16, which I think was well overdue because they haven't done a crossover with any game for Final Fantasy 16, and maybe it would have sold better if they did their crossovers prior to 16's release. This is what I think. Like, if I was head of marketing, I'd be like, hey, could we get these crossovers going maybe a month or two before 16 releases to hype people up for the game and make them interested in the characters and possibly want to play it? No? Okay, I think I'm just going to resign now. But I don't know what's up with them. There's not been a single crossover with 16 that's come out yet. Not even in their, like, widely popular mobile gacha games like Brave Exvius and War of the Visions. No crossover. It'd be so easy to make a crossover for that too. It should have been out before the game came out. Anyway, I'm going too far with that. You'll get a mount from 16, supposedly. So that's kind of cool. The new job is called the Viper, which is actually a name that has showed up in Final Fantasy before in like the tactics style games. It's kind of an assassin class in those games. I looked at how the Viper's playing, though. It does have an Assassin's Creed look to it, but it is a double sword-wielding class that is focused on sword play and attacking like really fast. So, you know, DPS, but every class in these type of games is technically a DPS. It's just, are you like an actual DPS? Are you a tanking DPS? Or are you a healing DPS? That's just how the game works. And during its burst window, it can fuse its two swords together to make a double-sided sword and do like some Darth Maul tricks. This is really just the fighter. This is the actual warrior class from Final Fantasy that's been there forever, but they decided that the warrior class in this game was going to be a true tank instead. So they made the Berserker the warrior instead of what it's supposed to be, and now we finally actually have the warrior in the game. And it's just going to play like every melee DPS. Like, it'll have interesting animations. And it's like, this is going to be more technically demanding. DPS stands for damage per second, Fizchozo. It's an old term that we've been throwing around for a long time in gaming, especially in live RPGs, like MMOs, where time is passing. So you actually count, like, if somebody is like the warrior job in or class in WoW or any of the mages or whatever, the people who are constantly proccing damage are doing a large amount of damage per second, so they're your DPS, as opposed to like your tank or your healer or your supports or anything like that. Yeah, it's gonna be a little more technically demanding, but aside from that, it's like this is just the monk with swords, or you know, like this is Samurai, but slightly harder. It's not going to be substantially different. It's really disappointing to finally put this class in the game this late into it when it probably should have just been there from the fucking beginning. Because Gladiator, that becomes Paladin, was also kind of just like the warrior class. It was also a tank. It was more warrior than the class they called warrior, but it becomes Paladin in the same way that fighter becomes knight, right? So like you kind of just lose that aspect over time. Warrior's really just Berserker. It goes from Marauder to Warrior. It's Viking into Berserker. That's all it is. The names are confusing because they have to use the more popular Final Fantasy names. But I don't know. I'm not excited for this job. I don't think it's substantially going to change the game. You're going to get it at level 80, which means to play it in the new expansion, you have to go through Endwalker again and level it during what is widely considered the worst leveling point of the game so far. I don't want to level a class to 90 through Endwalker. That fucking sucks. So I probably won't be playing this class unless I have extra money to buy the class skip. That will just skip a single expansion to level 90. That would be the only way I would play this class. Leveling sucks in Final Fantasy XIV. It is one of the worst MMOs I've played when it comes to leveling because they give you far too much to level. And the best way to level is through the main story. I'm sorry, by the time this comes out, if you are a player who's caught up and wants to play this class, you're done with the story of Endwalker. That bulk amount of experience does not exist anymore. You have to do the hard way. But the Alliance raids look fun because it's going to be Echoes of Vana'diel. And if anybody knows where Vana'diel is, that's the world that Final Fantasy XI takes place on. So this is going to be a Final Fantasy XI 24-man raid series where everybody's like running together. That's probably going to be the only thing I'm looking forward to so far for Final Fantasy XIV. I hope when I actually see the story, like the actual campaign, that it feels different from the previous ones, because the campaign has become so redundant now that it is just story. You know exactly what you're going to do. You know how many dungeons you're going to do. All the dungeons are just going to be hallways that have wall-to-wall pulls in between the three bosses of the dungeon. There's nothing exciting about the dungeons. The bosses aren't interesting because they have to be made that the lowest common denominator can beat them in a team, or at least like a good player can carry three really bad players in a team. And nothing's entertaining until the post-expansion. I don't know. Stormblood was the last one I liked. I was bored in both Shadowbringer and Endwalker going through the whole thing. And Endwalker even has one of the absolute worst solo instances I've ever played in an MMO. So much that I retroactively lowered my entire score of the game because of that one solo instance. This better be brought up, right? Or I don't even know how I'm gonna feel. I don't even know if I'll purchase the game. You know, like.
Yeah.
That's it. I didn't got anything else.
All right. Well, glad you got that off your chest.
Yeah, I had to complain. I have so much to complain about Final Fantasy XIV, and maybe I won't even like bore everybody here who may or may not be interested about it. I might just go make my own video about me complaining about Final Fantasy XIV sometime. But yeah. That's it for the show. Unless you have anything last minute to say.
Nope, not at all.
Okay. Well, thank you all for
watching. We covered everything.
Yeah. If you enjoy the show, please share it with somebody else. Bring more people in the audience. Make sure that you're following and subscribed so you don't miss the future ones. And if you really enjoy the show, go one step beyond and consider giving a donation to streamlabs.com/vomitorium live. Really helps us out, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.